We're talking about autumn atonement. And the reason for that is because, first of all, we're in the middle of the high holy days between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. And we're also in this place that it's almost the middle between the longest day of the year, summer solstice, and the shortest one, the winter solstice. We're days away from the fall equinox. And if my calendars are correct, both Yom Kippur and the fall equinox are on Wednesday. Am I right? All right. So, what I love to do, of course, trained in this teaching, is not just to honor all paths, because that's where it begins. That's where the willingness and the curiosity comes from. But what happens out of that willingness and that curiosity is the capacity to recognize commonality. You know, whatever we go looking for, we can find. Ernest Holmes says that what you're looking for, you're looking with. So when you're looking for what is common to all paths, when you're looking for what is common among different peoples, when you're looking for common ground, that's what you find. If you're looking for a reason to fight, something to argue about, something to go wrong, you can find that too, right? So the beauty of this tradition in this teaching to honor all paths and to be based in metaphysics, which are based in universal truths, universal principles, which means that they have neither a beginning nor an end. They are there to discover. They're everywhere, constantly operating. And they are there to be discovered and utilized by anyone. Principles operate the same way every time. Is that we get to find out what those common things are and what the common principles are. So that's sort of the groundwork for what I'm about to say, which is I thought, gee, you know, I'm really attuned to the seasons and have spoken many times about different invitations from the outside world as well as my inner state to slow down at this time of year. I've used analogies everywhere from getting a cold to getting a speeding ticket to looking at what is happening in the fields in other climates perhaps, but nonetheless. A time of harvests, some of them having been completed, and more of them, imminent. I always think of my brother in upstate New York, when he runs through all of those berries in June and then all of these vegetables, in July and August, and then gets to the point where they're just the roots things to pull out of the ground and till the soil under, and there are apples to pick, and there's cider to make, and things like that. And pretty soon, it stops for a while. So, in terms of autumn, no matter where we live, there is this natural cycle. And I want to say that there are about 4 elements to it. One of them is the slowing down. The next one is taking stock. Some sort of taking stock. The next one is putting things in order, so to speak. And the next one is readying for what is ahead. Putting aside whatever it is that you need to move into the next season. So we have that. And for those of you who post on Facebook too, I posted my copy of this book on there because I love delving into this book by Rabbi David Cooper that is about the mystical Kabbalah. And there are some things in there that I would say would be one of the most interesting ways for me to discover about that path is through reading what he has to write. Number one, because it's a mystical, metaphysical approach that I can relate to. And the other probably because it's drawing outside of the lines, and I love spending time beyond borders. And the other is that there's a little bit of quantum science in there too, sort of backing it up. But the bottom line is that there are some pieces in the book I'm going to share with you in a few minutes that tell me, a person who was not raised in the Jewish faith, that during these 10 high holy days between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, a lot of stuff goes on that's very similar to what I was just describing about autumn. There is a slowing down. There is a conscious choice to come apart. There is a taking stock. There is a willingness and an effort to put things back in order. And in this case, we're starting to talk about the order of our alignment with our Creator and all of creation, our right relationships with one another and all that is. And then a preparation for renewal. And so I know that's a bit of a stretch, but I created this foundation to say that what I do is I go in and I look for metaphors and parallels, what things have in common, and then I run with them. What I love about this comparison, this parallel, is that if we take these 4 things and run with them, which are number 1, to slow down, number 2, to take stock, number 3, to put things back in order, and number 4, to prepare for renewal. That's STP and then something. That if we choose to do that for ourselves, we know that the outcome is going to be good. And there are so many reasons that we're given in our daily lives, reasons that we believe we are, reasons we believe we're related to by birth or marriage, reasons that we believe that we have no choice about because of employment, and so on, and so on, and so on, right? All these reasons why we couldn't slow down. There's no time to take stock. Just have to push on regardless of how, misaligned and out of order everything is. And prepare for what? I'm too busy. So we can hear the voices from out there saying, you can't do that. And yet, if we give ourselves permission, whether it is because of a religious tradition that we still hold dear, a connection with nature, or whether it is just a realization that this feels like a good idea, there is an opportunity being presented right now to say, you know what? I'm going to make a plan to slow down. Now, this doesn't mean just disown everyone, quit your day job, and stop living. It's to make a date with yourself. Right? And I'm going to take stock at that time. And I'm going to see how I might be guided to put things back in order. So I don't feel so out of alignment with what I know is possible. And so far away from what I know could be my life. I feel closer to it. I believe in it more. I trust it more. And so that I have gathered around me what I do need to keep and take forward into the next season of my life. Now, another time that we do this traditionally is the calendar New Year, which we celebrate and do similar ritual around December 31st, leading into January. People from all backgrounds choose to go through a similar process of taking time out, of taking stock, of putting things back in order, and preparing to move into the new cycle in a new way. I love that. And I'm grateful for all of the reminders to do it more than once a year, because I don't know about you, but I think I could probably use it more than once a year. Right? So what I wanted to share with you this morning are some examples as to how we might do that. First of all, we begin with the slowing down. And we know that we get invitations from our bodies and our affairs and our circumstances all the time to do that. I know there's one person here who's been very busy and has been demonstrating that for quite a while, and woke up one day and had the same thing that I had a couple of years ago and is on crutches waiting for her knee to go back down to its normal size again. And I said, so what have you been stepping into as if you didn't have any choice in the matter? Because that's what it was for me. And we had a nice conversation about that, and she's just taking some time to reflect, right, and take stock. We've all had opportunities presented to us by our bodies, by our circumstances, by getting fired or broken up with, right, or disowned or whatever it is, by losing someone to illness, death, just change. And yet every one of those endings and those changes offers an opportunity for a new beginning too. So we know about slowing down, and the point at this time is to make a choice to do it. The next one is taking stock. Of course, farmers do it, shopkeepers do it, personal growth people do it, a lot of 12-step programs do it. There's so many of these elements you'll recognize from other things that you've participated in, perhaps, in your life, or things that you've witnessed before. So our taking stock is the first thing that we do after we have chosen to slow down. And this beautiful example is called tashlich. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but it's called sending away, and according to my little system here, it's right here. So I'd like to share this first example of something that we could do, or something like it, to during this period of review. This practice of sending away, which is done annually on the afternoon of the first day of Rosh Hashanah, which already happened, we usually say prayers at a body of water into which we cast breadcrumbs, which represent residual aspects of traits, habits, or memories we would like to discard. And the following is a variation on this. This is also used for people who are getting ready to make their transition. So sometimes you may be in a position to help a person with this, if that is the case. On scraps of paper, write responses to the following. Things I have done in my life that I regret. Anything that I may have said to harm someone. Events I would replay if I could. Things I wish I had said to someone. Promises I made that were never kept. Hopes and dreams that never worked out. Anything can be added to this list. Each scrap of paper should be crumpled up, and it goes on to say that it should be destroyed. And it's, for example, if you're in a hospital room and you can't light things on fire, then tear it up into little pieces, anything will do. So there you go. An opportunity to just take stock, because it always yields useful information, and it does something else. If you do it with somebody you trust, you have this double gift going on, because you unburden yourself and usually discover that it really wasn't that big and hairy and scary after all, and someone witnesses that with you. It's an honor on both sides to do that. So the next example, it's got that C word, confession, in it. Offering confession and asking forgiveness. And of course, we know what that is, but I love that this is something that in the past, some of us have avoided and others have stopped doing, because the perception was that we were confessing maybe to an outside, capricious or angry or punishing God. Or we were simply reporting to some middleman, and it just didn't make sense. It just didn't make sense. And we thought, I'm not going to do that. And the whole idea that this might be a sacred act that would actually be freeing for us, that we would do because we want to deepen our own relationship with Spirit, Creator, the I Am principle within, our own personal relationship. No middleman, no reporting to someone else because of some rules, no outside thingy, It takes on a different meaning. So this too is associated with this time between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, a time when we communicate with the divine, confessing things we regret having done, said, or even thought. Hey, how about that? Because we know thought is creative. At any time in the year, however, we can take on the spiritual practice of confessing our regrets to another person or listening to another person's confessions. The success of this practice is not measured by the amount or intensity of information divulged, but rather the success is measured by the degree to which a safe haven is provided in which a person can choose to discuss his or her regrets. And it goes on to say that there is no pressure. It is just a complete safe environment for that. It can take two people. It usually does. I do a lot of journaling, and this is about, again, this amazing practice of witnessing, which we don't talk about a lot. We're going to in a class that's coming up in January on spiritual practical mysticism. Okay. And so the purpose of this exercise is to be willing to admit mistakes and to ask for forgiveness. And when we are able to do so, the process can be profoundly moving. It opens up a new potential for understanding between people and is highly recommended for healing old wounds. So you may recognize one or more of these practices. Think about the burning bowl ceremony so many of us have been to on New Year's Eve. I remember as a teenager, because I like to journal so much through my life. I was really kind of a weirdo introvert. I would stay home more and more and reflect on New Year's Eve and write things down on a little piece of paper and then put them in the wood stove or flush them down the drain or whatever, but somehow do this ritual. And I hadn't read anything about it. It was just an instinctive and intuitive desire to do what? To slow down, to take stock, to put things in order, and to prepare for the new cycle, for renewal. So I love that. We're not unfamiliar then with these things. It is more about remembering how valuable they are, as simple as they seem. It is more about recognizing that though we may have misinterpreted and rejected those practices in the past, we could pick them back up again because they're about our relationship with our higher self. They're about our relationship, our personal relationship with Spirit, with Creator, however we choose to frame that. They're not about anybody else. The beauty of it, though, is that how we show up for others when we do that is the best. Isn't that funny? That's one of those paradoxes, that when we do something entirely and purely for that relationship with the I Am within, which could appear to be a selfish act to take time out and do this silly thing, right? What happens is we're able to show up more wholly and fully than we ever could if we put it off. Which I know, for one, is something that I more often do. Put it off. So slowing down, taking stock, putting things in order, and getting ready for renewal. There's one other thing that I want to share with you that actually involves a guided meditation. And I love this because it takes place on a beach. And it takes place on a beach where there's a little house at one end. And for those of you who came to our wedding, the Jupiter Civic Center is really this cute little antique yellow cottage with clapboards, white trim on the beach. And so in my mind, it fits that perfect imagery. And I'm going to take you into that, where you're sitting there on the beach and you look down this stretch of coast and there's this little house. So you can imagine that with me. You've probably walked by it, I'm sure. Excuse me. So this is one other practice that is suggested as something that can be done during the High Holy Days between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, and it's meditation. How about that? I love that we're often referred to as ancient wisdom and new thought. And that we're discovering as we delve so often into practices throughout the year that we really are actually replaying ancient wisdom, rediscovering ancient wisdom, realizing that ancient wisdom had it all along. And we have new science to prove the efficacy of the ancient and prescribed prayers. So I'd like you to just take a moment and close your eyes, and I'm going to guide you on a very short little trip at the beach, okay? So this is again by Rabbi David Cooper, and it is called Through God's Eyes. And first I will share this opening, the essential understanding of messianic consciousness lies in appreciating the nature of process as an ongoing phenomenon. God is God-ing. Creation is creationing. You and I are verb-ing, continuously unfolding in a dance with the divine. And this awareness alone is sufficient to raise our consciousness to its highest potential. So we begin by choosing this place as a place in which we will not be disturbed for a few minutes. And we sit quietly, comfortably, breathing normally. I invite you to imagine that you are on an empty, protected beach on a warm, sunny day. You are sitting or lying on the sand, fully relaxed. You can let go of all your cares and worries while on this beach. You are alone here and completely safe. Now look around you and describe to yourself what you see. Notice how you feel. At one end of the beach is an empty house with at least 3 rooms. Let yourself walk toward this house, but do not enter it yet. Describe to yourself what the empty house looks like. Walk through the front door of this house. The first room you enter will have a full-length mirror. Stand before this mirror and look at yourself. You can see yourself in great detail. Try to notice as much as you can about how you look in this mirror. How are you feeling while you do this? After a few minutes of looking at yourself, you will enter the next room. Here, too, is a mirror. But this is a magic mirror that allows you to have a vision of what God looks like. Let your imagination flow and pretend that this is a window into heaven. Through it, you can see God. Allow yourself to spend a few minutes immersed in this experience of envisioning God. enter the third room. There is yet another full-length mirror in this room. When you stand before it, you will experience a combination of the first two rooms. Look at yourself in the mirror and experience the presence of the divine at the same time. That is to say, in this mirror, you will see yourself as God sees you. Look at yourself through the eyes of God, so to speak, and notice what you look like from the perspective of the divine. When you see yourself through God's eyes, notice how you feel. Observe how different you may feel from your experience with the first mirror. When you are ready, leave this house by the same way you entered. Return to the place on the beach where you began this exercise. And sit or lie in the sand, allowing yourself to feel free, relaxed, totally at peace. Remain here for a few minutes, and when you are ready, take a few deep breaths and open your eyes. So Rabbi Cooper goes on to say this: when we are able to let go of our inner critic for a while, we instantly realize a new relationship with life. In the eyes of God, our Creator, we are perfect. Each moment as Godding unfolds, God is a verb, we begin anew. Each moment is an opportunity to be fully who we are, or even who we think we want to be. It is always available to us. Godding is here. We are here. This is it. Isn't that beautiful? I love it. I love it. So we have this opportunity. Of course, we have it all the time. And we have the special opportunity right now because nature is doing it. Because there are cultures around the world celebrating in similar ways at this time. To take the time and make the time, make an appointment with ourselves to slow down deliberately. That'd probably be a place where phones are turned off or not brought along, where there's no email, there's no interruption. There's truly a sacred container that we've created for ourselves. And then in some way, one of these or whatever we're moved to do, take stock. And in some way, one of these or however we are moved to do it, realign with that higher knowing. Because we have a built-in knower. We have a built-in capacity to recognize truth. To recognize and know and embody and express love. It's built in. We're hardwired for that. So there's no need to doubt what we will discover if. Realign, put things back in order, so that when we step out the door, we know who we are, we know why we are, we know how we are. And we move through the next cycle, stepping into that also with all of the tools that we require, not only to access that renewal, but to maintain it. We all have practices, and we teach so many of them here, of prayer, of meditation, of journaling, of visualization, of walking, of being still, working in the garden, whatever it is, you already know what those things are that bring you that peace, that avail you instantly of that good feeling and renewal. So there's only one thing left to do, and that is simple, to say yes. Namaste.